All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition, the Week 13 Sunday edition of NFLDFS Review Show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. If you don't already, subscribe to the channel. We're almost to 5,000 subscribers here. The drive for 5 has been strong, trying to get there before Christmas. And if we do, we're giving away an annual membership. So subscribe to the channel now on the way in. Even if you're watching this on playback, it takes 2 seconds. All of our shows are free. You'll be able to get access to all of those. Like the video so you can help us out there. Got my guy Nades, Christmas spirit over there here with me. But before I bring him in, I want to remind everyone very quickly, this show is brought to you and presented by LineStar. Go to linestarapp.com. Use promo code SHIPIT if you want to check things out over there. We're going to be using it shortly to break down the perfect lineup. Nades, my man, back in the booth. This is our third last show. We will have one next week with Tyler from LineStar, same place, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And then the following week on the 18th of December will be our last review show. After that, it's Christmas Day, New Year's Day. We were trying to think about how we could do it all, but other things, golf is coming back soon, all this. So this will be our third last show. But what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Good, man. Had a great Sunday. Had some close calls. Obviously, you got the job done there. Many members got the job done. I still had a great Sunday, so I can never complain about having a good Sunday, watching football, enjoying it. Man, you gotta soak it in while it's still here. Obviously, comes and goes. Everyone's so excited for it, but it comes and goes so quickly. But after that, I mean, we still got NHL. We got NBA, which is obviously going to tick up big time after NFL kind of runs down and gets into the playoffs. So excited for that. But obviously, you love NBA. I love NBA. We were out there together in Denver at the live final. We got you covered all over there. And obviously, we just launched our ceiling rankings and things like that for that over here at the Nation. So huge things continue to come, continue to improve over here at the Nation. If you're not a member, I'm not sure what you're doing, but ready to dive in and review this slate. I think we nailed it, and we were there. Obviously, you just need everything to go 100% your way, right? You need Russell Wilson not to take sneaks. You need Sam Howell to use his weapons in the red zone instead of just turn it into a bowling ball and take it all himself. So we'll talk through it, but ready to jump in, man.
Yeah, it was a fun dynamic. Like the slate dynamics yesterday were fun. Obviously, we had the highest ownership on anybody in the season. Zach Moss. We had Tyreek Hill way up there, who we'll talk about as well. By the way, Tyreek Hill, who I loved in my core report, I had a bunch of them. I had to calm the Discord down a little bit. When someone's almost 10K, they're supposed to put up 35 points. So you shouldn't be surprised. I know it happened early, so everyone got overexcited. You will not see him on an optimal. You won't see him on the winning lineup. Again, when you're 9,600, you kind of need to come through 45, 40 plus in some cases if it's a slate of 10 games, because there's going to be guys that score 28 for much cheaper. So we'll get to that when we get there. Again, I loved him. He was definitely the safest, best play on the board that I like because of that. But at the same time, you can't go off that and be results oriented. Thank you guys for all the support in the chat here, in the Discord. I appreciate everyone. I mean, it was a crazy weekend. I'm very grateful for everything that happened. I'm going to break it down, show you guys, but like just using the content. MMA, I got a mega seat blowout in this qualifier on Saturday, just with Title and Marley's core reports, and then the data and the projections, putting it together, ended up on a lineup that made sense using all the content. That worked out. Then in golf, our guy Lee Aldrich comes through. It's going to be an amazing PGA upcoming season. I actually think I have that one on here just to show it. And it was like, I got the King of the Desert seat. He posted, "Morning all. I know we're not officially doing, because we were not doing it's a 20-man event. We basically said it's like gambling, but hey, we're all going to throw a few lineups in. We're degenerates. It's not something we're going crazy with." He throws the course fit rankings in it. There's 6 of the top 8 that would fit a lineup, and boom, you win the thing with it. And it wasn't just me. B-Wald got his King of the Beach ticket with 621. He was in a higher dollar, smaller field. And then JP Perdames, he came through and got second in the $200 single entry with the exact same 661.5 lineup that I had, just using these course fit ranks. So that's a nice part that other people do come along with us when we get our wins. But I'm excited for golf season. Then we'll break down NFL. But like you said, everything has to go your way. I'll tell you what, I needed a Devontae Smith 2-yard touchdown from a team that runs the brotherly shove, tush push, whatever you want to call it, pretty much every time they get down there. So It's just the way things break. It was eerily similar to just over a month ago when I won the same tournament. I needed a Marquise Brown touchdown from the 1 yard line. Got it, posted it in the Discord, said I need it. Got it, did it yesterday. I wanted to, superstitious, right? I had to post it in the Discord and say, need this. Got it. So a very fortunate day for me. I'll show it off because I know people want to review this first. That's what people want to see. How did you get there? What did you have? Just so you can see. So this was the lineup. Purdy, Hubbard, Kamara, Devontae Smith, Debo, Godwin, Laporta, double tight end, which we'll see more of in a second. And I should have thought about this more on DK. I'm going to talk about it when we get there. Conklin and the New York Jets. If you see it, it's a Purdy to Debo with the run back of Debo. It's a secondary stack of Kamara and Laporta. It's a secondary stack of Hubbard and Godwin. And it's a kind of secondary stack, but it's tight end with defense. It's not really just two from the same squad. This was the setup of it. I came 8th in the $9 with it. I was in for 2,300, got out 109. I actually lost 7,500. Boo-hoo, who cares? I'm just saying, like, it happens. The safety, but it protected the money on the other side. So it's just, that's part of the business and how it goes. But let's bring this off the screen. We'll bring it back, Nades, in a second. I'll let you dissect the lineup. I do want to get over to our other side here and see it. So we'll share this tab. If you guys are on SHIPIT Nation, like, you could go here and set it up. I'm going to go to this. I'll show you exactly where I got this lineup from. This is the second time we're doing this season, so it's going to be documented. But if you go here and go NFL slate plan, I mean, we got all these sports, all these links, everything that you can use. But this is just one section that has now won me over $200,000, where when you go to the NFL slate plan, you see it up at the top here, NFL slate plan, you scroll down. Ham specifically focuses on FanDuel. And I talk about that because it is important. It's different scoring. It's a different setup. And I mean, like, here's a prime example. I was using this morning with somebody talking in the Discord or on offline. Curtis Samuel, great play usually on DraftKings. He can hit it up through the slot. He can catch 8 balls for 60 yards and still come through at a $4,100 price tag and be solid. And not that what he did yesterday, just using an example. But on FanDuel, that's not going to amount to very much. Whereas you can just wait around on a Dotson touchdown for a 60-yard bomb. And even though it may take all game and get there, that alone is worth a bunch more points because you get the touchdown, the yards, the half point for the catch, everything, where it can add up on one play versus all those little slot movements. So back to this, Nades, and I'll let you dissect it, but just a quick breakdown on it. The lineup is here. Purdy, Devontae Smith, Samuel. If you go to Ham's plan, right here, Purdy, Samuel, run it back with Smith. All right, first part's done. Go back to it again. Now we're looking at the secondary stack. Alvin Kamara, Hubbard, Godwin, and Laporta. Alvin Kamara, Hubbard, Godwin, Laporta. He only lists 2 tight ends and 2 defenses, and I got 3 of them. They're right here. Look. Conklin, the Jets, Laporta. Laporta, Conklin, Jets. Rounded it out. There's $100,000 using content on the site. Others can use it. You just go on, you use Ham's FanDuel slate plan. That's all I did for this particular lineup. So Nades, I'll let you talk about that one first. We'll bring it back here. You can bring it up, but any thoughts on the lineup, any chat comments too, you guys can talk about what you see or if you have any questions on it. But that was the lineup that got the job done. It was right there in the content on the site.
Yeah, first thing that stands out to me, number one, congratulations. Hamwich has been smashing FanDuel. He continues to smash FanDuel, and everyone sleeps on FanDuel, right? All the stuff, right? All the shenanigans of FanDuel over the years and contests of this and that. But I will say their NBA and their NFL contests are both very good for the entry fees and stuff like that. And I mean, nobody's going to complain about $200,000 plus over a course of a season. So Tambo's probably got a different taste on FanDuel. But overall, the thing that stands out to me with this lineup is you faded the Miami game, right? And you faded the Indy Tennessee game, which you knew both of those games were very popular, especially on DraftKings. So that's one thing that stands out to me, where 2 site differential, obviously price tags, things like that are different. Scoring is different on FanDuel. So you faded those 2 games because, number one, you already knew you were heavily invested in those games over on DraftKings as well. And you went in on the game where, right, San Fran and Philly, right? The game, Purdy, underpriced. Devontae Smith, right? You don't have the money to get up to AJ Brown when you're spending up for Kamara and Laporta. but also you didn't take the Brevin Jordan, right? The punt tight end, Brevin Jordan at tight end. You went up, you paid up for upside, right? All the way up to the top in Laporta. You still took a cheap guy, Tyler Conklin, right? With the backup QB right there, the Tim Boyle, have to get the ball out quick, throw it off to Conklin. So everything makes sense here. And the biggest thing is the FOMO, right? Everyone always has the FOMO. You can't, I have to have a Miami piece. I have to have Zach Moss or an Indy Houston piece. So just not having FOMO and going in on conviction is the biggest thing that we've seen every week. We review this stuff, right? And you did it, and it $100,000 more in your pocket.
And to note too, like this is the same Hamwich plan all over Tua. Like I had Tua lineups and Tua builds. We had Carr, Tua, Olave. And so some of this stuff, you brought up some good points and the chat brought them up too. So I'll just talk through it a little further and then we'll move on to the normal review, the perfect lineup, all that. But I mean, people wanted to see where I got to this. And so I saw a bunch of Twitter comments of how the hell would you ever get to Hubbard and Kamara? And the chat's already catching on to some of it. And shout out to our guy, Justin. Hope all is well, man. I hope it's not too serious, but let us know if you need anything at all, man. We're here for you. This is the setup, though. Like the Purdy Debo Smith one, I think is pretty straightforward. That just is what it is. It was expensive to get up to CMC over there, but I already like that stack anyway. Everyone knows you can throw on Philly, and at the other side of it, that's kind of the way you come back, but it just kind of is a stack that makes sense. But a lot of people on White went with Hubbard. Ham talked about this heavily on the show yesterday. He actually joined us in the hoop spot on the show yesterday and talked about Tampa Bay being without a bunch of their guys. We talk about the new coaching regime and how they kind of turned it over to Hubbard. And then we also talked about them being down. So maybe seeing some more checkdowns of both of their tight ends, right? They had no Hurst, they had no Tremble. So just looking at it from that perspective, there was at least opportunity and he was leverage on White. Kamara, same thing. A lot of people going to Perry or Olave or even Taysom Hill. Kamara, but the matchup. Again, I talk about this all the time and our guy Go Collect says it here. Better DK plays in FanDuel makes them lower owned. It's not just that. It's also matchup. People don't like playing these guys because people like say it all the time. How could you play Kamara in this matchup? It's Kamara. He can catch the ball. They're just as bad against. He's basically a receiver for them. So there's so many ways for him to be able to get there that's kind of the point. So definitely want to talk about that. Godwin got lucky at the end to get him to do that. But I think in the end, I talked about it all week. I thought we would see him more. There was heavy coach speak. And last week we talked on this show making fun of it, but it was true. The coach speak kind of comes true this time of the season. And that's kind of what we saw, but it didn't work out till the very end. He got a rushing touchdown. Laporta, pay up when everyone's paying down. And then, yeah, Jason, you brought up the greatest point here. Was going to say this. On FanDuel, it's not actually just medium to large size. I came 8th in the $9, which has like 200,000 people. FanDuel does not require perfection. DraftKings, you guys have seen it on this very show. We're talking about being 7 points, 11 points, 15 points away from the optimal lineup, the literal best lineup you can make on all of DraftKings. On FanDuel, a 7, a 5, a 9. And it was literally one more point away from a top 3 actually for 50K in the main $9 on FanDuel. So just keep that in mind for any of you that want to check it out. Again, you can just work with it this way. And secondly, just to bring that back too, someone said this is like, oh, it's not in FanDuel's, it's not in Hamwich's core report. And they're not calling it out. They're just saying, I didn't see that. I thought you said that. No, we said in the slate plan. This is, again, building your own process, using the stuff to your advantage. There's Tua you could have built with Derek Carr. Not saying they all hit, I'm saying, but the point is not just getting a built for you, one size fits all 5-man core and actually going in and doing the work, reading the stuff, using the things you know from the course, the NFL course about correlation and leverage and doing things differently on the slate. That's all from my experience. I think that you guys will get better at it, or anybody out there that's not at the highest level that wants to learn more, you can put the time in too to figure this stuff out. But this is why we do these shows. That's why it's great that you're here watching it, breaking it all down so that you can actually see how we're going about building these lineups and how we're thinking about it and putting it in these tournaments. So definitely love that call. You don't need to be as perfect on FanDuel. That's certainly the case. Nades, anything else on this that you want to talk about before we move on to the perfect lineup?
No, biggest thing is the perfection thing, right? I mean, we review lineups every week on DraftKings, right? Where if you have one guy that doesn't, I mean, even if it's not a snowflake or a flame, right? But one guy doesn't get you that flame. I mean, a lot of times you're 30, 40 points away from shipping the tournament, which is absolutely crazy. And you just showed over on FanDuel that hey, it's a $55 buy-in, which obviously some people can't buy in for $55, and it's a multi-entry contest and things like that. You could play a $50 single entry, things like that with that same entry, but it's not like you're playing a $1,000 buy-in tournament to win $100,000, right? So that's the biggest thing too. I mean, even if they had $9, right, they spend more than that on a Happy Meal or a meal at their favorite restaurant, right? Throw $9 in, you took what, 7th place or whatever, 10th place for
There's
7,500
8th
bucks.
place or something like $7,500. It's just another,
On
it's
nine
another way to
bucks
do it.
on $9 return. So it's not like we're playing and you're playing these tournaments that most people can't enter. It is the biggest thing too. So and we, like you said, we have people that focus specifically on site by site, which is
Yeah.
obviously huge because there is a lot of differences between the sites.
And it matters across all sports, right? You talked about NBA, like NFL's, we're going on week 14 here coming up after tonight's game. Again, if you haven't got there yet this week, like we say, if you're having a great week so far, there's still Monday Night Football. We're going to be covering that later on the Mayo Media Network, 2 p.m. Eastern. Hoop is back from his trip in the booth. Hoop, Title, and myself will be breaking all that down so you guys can join us there on the Mayo Media Network. But yeah, you said it. Some of the stuff, there was some good flips too. So let's look at this optimal lineup. The James Conner revenge game on the opposite side of those Pittsburgh backs where we were loving both of them. He ends up coming through. First time back there, I believe that he was back to play at the Pittsburgh place. So you see that. Hubbard, we just had him. He actually got there. He was 5,300. Made some sense. Opposite White, you've got the Brock to Debo. Alec Pierce just got there on one play. That's not the guy you expect to see, but he happens to fill it out here, and that's fine. Nico, huge day there. You talked about it. Laporta, paying up there at the tight end position. The Chalk D and the Falcons did get there. We knew they were in a good spot, so it's fine. It's not like they were 50% owned or something, but yeah, we usually are moving off that personally, so I'm fine with it. I even played the Jets. That was another thing, by the way, that was the opposite side that Ham was on there. It was why not use the opposite side of that game for the defense? It could just be as solid, and I think you kind of could have got to. I would never have played Mecole Pruitt because it's funny because like Pitts and the other guys, they never get in the box, but Pruitt and Atlanta D, I think was the flip of Conklin and Jets, but never getting to that. And again, using the slate plan, like we said. So Nades, here's the perfect lineup brought to you by our friends over at LineStar. Again, if you guys want to go to LineStar app, you can use the promo code SHIPIT to check it out. But what do you see here, Nades? A good little setup, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good setup, right? The Brock Purdy, Debo, everyone's talking about. I heard a bunch of people talking about Purdy naked stacks again, right? Just because last week or the week before, right, we reviewed Purdy naked. Well, Purdy shows up again, right? You can pass all over this Philly team. Everyone knows that. Purdy, 6,100, still super cheap for that. I mean, Debo, right? Debo with all the coach speak and all him running his mouth, right? You had to assume that, hey, they were going to at least give Debo chances, and they did. Obviously, a couple of those he busted just because Debo did Debo things, right? Busted them loose, made a couple guys miss, and off he goes for 40 yards for a touchdown. But Alec Pierce, that doesn't. I mean, don't really worry about that. I mean, the dude caught like an 85-yard bomb, right, over the shoulder, dropped a dime in the bucket, so that doesn't really stand out. But the one thing, Nico Collins, right? Everyone talks about Tank Dell, Brevin Jordan. People were going to Devin Singletary. Nico Collins is still there, right? Nico Collins is still heavily involved. He's getting the targets every week. Obviously, he benefited a little bit from the Tank Dell injury, right? So you can't fully take a victory lap on that. But, I mean, his ownership, 8%. I mean, we see this week after week, Tambo. How many times have we looked at these Houston teams with how CJ Stroud has been playing and Houston's been playing, and Tank Dell comes in significantly higher owned every week? Everyone sleeps on Nico Collins. But before Tank Dell emerged early in the season, Nico Collins was the guy everyone wanted to play right from last year. So Nico Collins getting there. The Laporta flipped the build script, right? Paying up at tight end when everyone's punt with Brevin Jordan, Adam Troutman, some of these other cheap punt tight ends, right? Because tight end's gross. Everyone knew tight end was gross if you're not going up. And the thing that makes this interesting too on how someone could get here is most people that would have this lineup would have put in Kittle there, right? Kittle and Debo, like myself. I ran a lot of Debo, Kittle, Brock Purdy stacks. Just getting a little bit different, right? Flipping the script, grabbing one piece from that Detroit offense, which obviously Detroit's been a great football team all year. Sam Laporta. So that's an interesting piece. And then the Pittman, I know you talked about Pittman a lot too, right? Leverage the Zach Moss ownership with a guy that can eat his lunch, right? Get the red zone targets and get there in anywhere on the field, right? With the receptions, he's the PPR guy. So overall, pretty interesting build. It actually makes a lot of sense, but you'll see once we review the $20 Millie Maker, mean, people didn't come within 40 points of this, and still won $1 million. So
interesting take here too. I think that, I mean, not a take, but just a fact. I think that this perfect lineup is wrong because I think the Colts scored 18. Actually, I'd have to double check. Maybe they only scored 17, but in that case, it would still fit
Colts
the same bill,
18,
and it's fine.
yeah.
But I see in a couple places where the Colts scored 18 on the things, but I know that Labs has been off a little on that, so maybe it did end up dropping to 17. But still, you could have got there at the same for $200 less. So great call out by Jason there. Good monitoring on this setup. And we've seen this a bunch of times this season where it's just the dude and his guy, and that's all you need. Remember Trevor Lawrence, Ridley week. You just needed those two. Like, again, so maybe that's kind of the thing. I know we've been making fun of it the last few weeks of like, oh, they're not stacking at all and everything like that. And there's no right, wrong, or whatever. Like, I think you should be stacking. I mean, that's how everything, the numbers bear out and it still shows. But I guess like we said last week, obviously in larger field, you need to have the right play. So that's kind of the thing. In a smaller field, you can get away with overstacking because you need to be less perfect. So a lot of good things that we're seeing. Renegade says the reason on Laporta was sound with Saints being, yeah. And also not just that, everyone was paying down. We knew everyone was paying down. The Brevin Jordan spot was obviously good. I will say, let's talk about a little bit about that before we go into this $20 Millie Maker. I'll bring it up so people can see it and stare at it for a minute, Nades. But a couple things, right? Like this is going to be some results-oriented stuff today, right? Because, oh, no, I know Andrew's the man. He's sitting here. He's being a little sarcasm to that one, I think, Andrew. He's saying, no, 80% own Zach Moss in the perfect lineup. No, he busted for a result. But I said this, and I'm not saying he's doing this. I'm just, broadly speaking here. I posted in the Discord right away last night so people would see it. I think a lot of people would not play Zach Moss next time at $4,600 in this spot because of today's result. But man, the guy got literally all the work like he was expected to. And then inside the 10 and everything that he got there, I think it was 6 carries inside of the 10. And that changes everything in your mind and opinion. You got what you paid for. I would be in on that every time for the workload that we got. You cannot control the outcome and the result. So it's unfortunate based on that. But the guy literally had, and we're going to check some good players. I haven't looked yet. Maybe they all faded and maybe I'm an idiot. We'll see. But I'm going to look up some players that I respect and see what they did with Zach Moss. And we'll see out of curiosity. But I will say, like Jason said, yeah, 21 touches, 5 inside the 5. And it was more inside the 10. You can extrapolate it out even further. But the point is that, even here, we've seen Yodacal get away with a 0 one time? Mm-hmm. Or it was at least a snowflake, if not a 0. Now we're seeing a 7-7. It's also what it makes work, right? You still need that to get the other big 32s and 32, 37, 38, 32. You got to get those scores in. So you need that. And then what if he did more? He just didn't. But you'll take that workload every time at that price. That's awesome to see. Can't get right. 903 got the job done here, Nate. So there was that one. And then also the Tyreek Hill thing. I already hit on it a little, so I'm not going to beat it again. I loved the play. I had a ton of him. I think he was a great play because you knew this sort of safety level you have with him. His prop was like 101 yards through the air. That's pretty good sign usually when you're going through it. But again, you do need a lot more. And I remembered this and talked about it on the show yesterday of the years of Devontae Adams at big price tags and Cooper Kupp at big price tags. And they would get to 30 or 32 and be nowhere to be found because Mike Evans at 7,700 would also get there. Or Nico Collins at 6,800 would break it. Debo at 6,200 would bust it. And that's just, there's too many good guys out there. There's too many, same situations, just people don't have the comfort level, but you gotta go with that sometimes, be comfortable being uncomfortable. So thoughts on Tyreek Hill, thoughts on Zach Moss, just how it all shook out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll play this Zach Moss play. Call me a chalk donkey, call me what you will. 4,600 for a guy that got that many touches. We knew he was going to get the work. I was looking at it as a free square. Another guy I was looking at with Brevin Jordan too. It was a matchup play. Brevin Jordan, obviously he's not showing up here, but Brevin Jordan, granted, Laporta went nuclear, right? Some of these top ends, basically if you didn't have Laporta right at the tight end position, because a lot of these value plays or mid-tier receivers did smash, and Tyreek ceiling got capped, right? Because Washington couldn't keep that game close. They're not going to run out Reek, who's been dealing with injuries every game this year. When they're up by 30 points against the Washington team, right? So Zach Moss, that I looked at him as like a free square. So, and you can look at it like this: $20 Millie Maker, 35% of the field still faded the guy, right? That was 4,600. Granted, he didn't get there, but if he would have got 20 points. I mean, 35% of the field is drawn stone dead, right, at 4,600. So you can look at it both ways, right? Whenever you got to play like that, it was just, I mean, if that Jonathan Taylor news hit earlier before pricing came out, I mean, Zach Moss would have been probably 6,500, right, or up that. So that whole Zach Moss thing, everyone wants to be results oriented in the wrong way. The opportunities were there, the workload was there, and you can't be results oriented, right? So like that play, the thing that stands out to me about this build right here is the Mike Evans leverage off of the Rachaad White and going to, so he went Mike Evans and Derrick Henry instead of Rachaad White. And I forgot I don't know what the salary leaves you there, but I'm sure it's another wide receiver flip there. And I mean, that's huge, right? Rachaad White came in at 31% ownership in the Millie Maker. He got Mike Evans, 7,700, 4.8K, a little bit more expensive. And Mike Evans has continued to do it each and every week. I mean, this guy just continues to catch these bombs. Baker just continues to chuck him the freaking football down the field. He continues to catch it, continues to catch touchdowns. So that was an interesting piece here that can't get right. Did get right. It is flipping the Rachaad White to Mike Evans there at 4% ownership. Still allows you to play 21% Purdy, 65% own Zach Moss, 21% Deebo Samuel, right? The 14% punt defense, New England, at home against the Chargers team, right? I played some New England defense as just a punt, right? 2,400. They just fit the build. They were at home. They've been a solid defense. So overall, I mean, I think this was a great build. We talked about the Laporta flip a lot. The Greg Dortch was probably just his last piece that just fit there. Just needed a piece in that game. And didn't have McBride, which didn't have the money to go up to McBride, which people wanted to do. So why not go back to Dortch with the connection between him and Kyler there? So overall, I mean, pretty solid build here for sure.
Yeah, you could flip all this around at the bottom. Like could have been McBride, Jameson Williams, and a more expensive defense. Instead, doing something like this, I'm fine with. The single stack, like Sean says it, like again, I would call it cut somewhat results oriented just from seeing, like again, you're still talking about stacking. It's not like the last couple of weeks where people are like, oh, I guess I just don't stack anymore. That we can't do it based off these small samples that we have. I'm going to continue to stack. The best players continue to stack. It's how things actually shake out. One thing's for certain is obviously the projections. Like if you just look, like all these plays, Brock Purdy, Deebo, these all were pretty solid. Greg Dortch was talked about a bunch. Nico Collins, not as much, but still almost 10% in the millie. It's not chalk or anything. I'm not saying. I'm just saying like some of these plays, like nobody's a 0.2%er here. He wasn't going digging in his bag for like some diamond in the rough. It was more flips. If I'm not playing Zach Moss, if I'm playing Zach Moss, how many people are going to play both of them together from the same game? That makes sense. If I'm not playing, Rachaad White, I meant to say, and you said this, Nate, I'll get a 4.8% Evans. I can get a Houston guy. Go down here. Laporta when everyone's paying down. Dortch when a lot of people are looking at McBride. And then a defense that's just off the 3,400 range is fine in itself. So really like this build. Thought it was strong. Good for can't get right 903. It makes perfect sense to me. I like this build too, though. I wanted to bring this one up, Nades, here. This was something we caught on to on the show last minute yesterday. And that's why I like doing those shows. I mean, not everything's final. Sometimes you get some ideas. I was actually looking at a Baker, Evans, Otten stack that I wanted to convert to a Stroud. I couldn't really find the Stroud lineup that I like, but sometimes when they're just giving you Brevin Jordan at 2,500, who's in a great matchup against Denver, who has Schultz injured in front of him, who we've seen catch passes in the past at just 2,500, how else can you make it work? Well, why not try and run it with Stroud when everyone's on the Wilson play on the other side, right? So again, Wilson actually ended up outscoring Stroud, mind you, with that rushing touchdown. But just to note, this kind of made some sense to me and I liked it. But where I'll go here instead, Nades, this is where I dropped the ball. I've been talking about this the last couple of weeks. I wish I did this more, especially in higher stakes yesterday on DraftKings, because the week we got McBride at 3,500, and when I think it was Ertz went to the injury, maybe I don't know if he went to IR or whatever. Obviously now he's released. We're going to see today probably. I'm guessing the news will come out today or tomorrow where he signed with. He was looking at 4 teams, but anyway, that week you just knew he was a good play. He catches passes. He's not a standard dude. He's going to be out there running routes. He's going to get his opportunities. You could use him to boost up because he was a guy that could legit get 20 points. Now, I didn't think Brevin Jordan could get 20 points yesterday. I actually thought he could get a 0. But I'm saying if you were building him in the right way, again, not results oriented or not what you're going to give him for a floor ceiling combination, what can he do for your build? was the idea. And if you were already going to get him as a standalone, many people were just going to play him by himself. I like the idea of using him to get an expensive Stroud, get in one of Stroud's guys, whether it was Tank Dell or Nico Collins. Again, can't be results oriented. You needed Nico. That made sense. Stroud could have done a bunch more. Brevin Jordan could have done a bunch more. This didn't even get there. I'm just showing you when you do something like this, then you get Hubbard on the opposite side of White, Pittman instead of Zach Moss, paying up for a tight end instead of going the other way. And then you got a defense like the Indianapolis that's $200 less. And see, it does say they scored 18. So I saw it earlier. Maybe it changed after the fact. But point being, I like builds like this, Nades. And I think we've seen the double tight end work a lot more this season because, again, you have to adapt to what's given to you. The pricing on tight ends has stayed where you can get a stone minimum 2,500 or a stud at 3,500 some weeks, using the McBride example previously mentioned, where that is like, man, you can't get wide receiver ones for anywhere near that. So I definitely think these are the guys that you have to sort of go to in some of these spots to be able to boost the rest of your lineup. Because again, while you have to be perfect, the key component is you need all these, man. You need the 18, 30, 38, 37, 31, 25. Like, you need those big scores in your lineups.
Yeah, no. I use the Brevin Jordan double tight end build a lot. I locked Brevin Jordan yesterday. I had him in 100% of the lineups. I just thought I like the offense, right? Houston, I like Stroud. Stroud continues to use his tight ends, right? Dalton Schultz has been a menace. I mean, tight ends have smashed this Denver team all season long. Doesn't matter who you are. Brevin Jordan has had success in the past, right? We've played this guy before. It's not like he's a guy that's just in there to block. You knew he was going to run routes, catch passes. So I just locked him. And actually, I did a similar build to this. Obviously, mine didn't work out to the extent of $25,000, but my main team, my main core on the site was Purdy, Debo, Kittle, Brevin Jordan, right? So I went, instead of Laporta, I went Kittle because I had Brock Purdy and Debo. It allowed me to get up to Tyreek Hill and then the Rashad Whites and that. So, like, taking that free square at stone minimum in a great matchup, I basically looked at it as it's a free spot, and then it allowed you to go up, whether you just burn your flex position like this guy did or put him in the tight end, and it allowed you to spend up elsewhere in the flex position for whatever else you wanted. So, like, that's kind of how I looked at it, and we've seen it multiple times, right, where tight ends get thrusted in this, whether it's injury, whether it's opportunity, whether it's just mispricing, like the McBride stuff for a while. It's just, you got to adapt, right? For a long time, it's been running back defense correlation was huge early, and then people started adapting. Showdown, it was massively, you could get wide receiver ones in the captain spot, super under owned, and then everyone started adapting, and now wide receiver ones, and now you're starting to get quarterbacks lower owned. So, like, you constantly got to evolve with the industry, with the pricing, with the contest. And this year it's been tight ends. I mean, these tight ends, you can argue, I mean, Laporta, right? Wide receiver one, him and St. Brown, right, lead that offense in Detroit, in 5,600 for Laporta. I mean, a lot of times we were paying $7K for guys like this, right, last season. So, like, you can argue Laporta was underpriced at 5,600. So, like, you just have to adapt. And overall, I did like the build a lot, just using Brevin as just, hey, if he gets you a 0, it doesn't kill you, because what does it allow you to do? It allows you to go up and get those guys that are going to score 30 to 35. At least that's what you're hoping for, right, in the build.
Yeah, and we're talking, look, 218.16, 217, 216, 216, 216. These are all builds right in the mix. These are different ones, but just know I like this build too. So everything you just said, I'll bring up again here. But look, Purdy, Debo, Devontae Smith. But how do you get up to another, again, it didn't fully work, but how do you get up to another Derrick Henry and a Nico Collins? Is you just do it again, this time with McBride and Jordan. Again, two pretty cheap guys. But then you also see other angles in this. He had the flip side, the leverage of Derrick Henry over Zach Moss, the secondary stack of Warren and McBride, the combo pack of Nico Collins and Brevin Jordan, who almost add up to, a little bit more to CMC money. But if you went CMC here, you don't have any money left, so you can't do that. And you also are already on Purdy and Debo, so kind of leveraging up. You play these two as a combo pack for 9,300. They don't need. Everyone say, oh, but you need Stroud. Well, you can't get him. Stroud is $2,000, 20. I think it was $8,100, $2,000 more. I know he had some money left over, but the point is, like, you can get away with playing the chalkier defense. You can get away with only having 3 plays under 10, 4 plays, I guess, under 10%, like, and still almost at 10% because of the setup of this build. So these types of builds are starting to work. And we saw it even last week too, not to go back in time, but just to say, like, when you have a Buffalo versus Philly game where it's very expensive to afford Allen, Hurts, one of those two with a Diggs or an AJ Brown and all that. And we saw people use Shakir as a cheap one, that's the other interesting part of it. Look, Greg Dortch, 2.9. Zach Moss, 4. It's not what they do fully, it's what they allow you to do. And this is what I'm saying: 32, 28, 32, 37, 38, 32. Kind of got away with it a little bit more. And this is one of the weeks where it's 218 to get the job done versus 260. So yesterday, chalk busted a little bit more. You could get away with less of the chalk and less of that optimal score. So I think we'll leave that one there. Let's move on. Let's go to your lineup real quick here, Nades. You wanted to talk about this one, and then we'll go to the 44-44 mega with shady advice and some of the ownership breakdowns on exposures on what others did across the industry. But your thoughts here. You built out this lineup again, 179. I know it's not 216, but we're talking on 4 builds. This was one of your best of the day and one that you built out. Talk to us a little bit about this one, and then I'll talk a little on it as well after.
Yeah, I like the Miami-Washington game, obviously, like everyone did, but I did it differently, right? I knew everyone was going to the Tua side, which was more expensive. I still wanted Tyreek Hill. I was slamming Tyreek Hill just like everyone was. Obviously, that's why you see the 45% ownership in a field this size of 163,000 people. But I went Sam Howell because Sam Howell, I mean, we've seen it. You've been a Sam Howell guy. I've played Sam Howell almost every single slate this year. He just chucks. I mean, he just chucks the ball. Washington doesn't want to turn around and hand the ball off. Doesn't matter what they are. I expected them to be trailing this game as well. So I like the Sam Howell play at 6,200 because I knew he was going to chuck. He played the worst game of his life. You and I were talking about this before the show. He played literally like the worst game I've ever seen, and he still scored 20 points. Granted, right, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. You can say results-oriented all you want. But, I mean, he still would have had a good day, and it would have probably helped me even better if one of those would have went to Logan Thomas or Curtis Samuel, right? So just grabbing that combo pack there. I think this was also in the stack rankings, if I'm not mistaken, over on the site. Yeah, our third ranked stack yesterday was Sam Howell, Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin. I didn't have the money to get up to McLaurin, so I went Curtis Samuel, right? Which Curtis Samuel has been heavily involved, and 4,100 in my eyes was just way too cheap for Samuel in this matchup where they're going to be passing the whole game, I thought. So I just grabbed that cheap value combo pack there with Samuel. Logan Thomas off the Brevin Jordan, off the cheap tight end chalk there. In a pretty solid matchup. Obviously, it didn't get there, right? But he had chances to. It allowed me to spend up to Tyreek, going with the double value there to get a little bit different with the Tyreek, right? And then the thing that I liked in this lineup is the Zach Moss. Middling that Zach Moss ownership down with a 7% owned Colts defense that's $200 cheaper than a 30% owned Atlanta defense. And if Zach Moss is going to smash, I mean, why not just go in with the Colts defense there? So I did like that. And then the secondary correlation there with Javonte and Nico Collins. I've been huge on Nico Collins just because, like I talked about all the leverage already. Granted, he did benefit, obviously, from the Tank Dell injury, but he was still involved even when Dell was still on the field. He was still getting catches. He was still doing his thing. And then Javonte getting that touchdown stolen by Russ. But it's just how I build, how you build. I know that. I just landed on Debo in the afternoon. I liked all the talk that Debo was talking about. I could have went down to Kittle, I think, there as well. But I did like the Debo. So overall, this is pretty similar to how you build, I'm pretty sure as well.
Yeah, and I like a few things about it. I'm going to show it off here. Just going to quickly move this around here. I got too much going on my plate, but yeah, just to look at it, and yeah, the chat saying could have been a lot worse, right? You could have had McLaurin in there. Mr. Cardio himself joked about it, actually, and I think Jason means let's give Linestar, our partner, some credit for having the right stuff, as Labs does not. Labs has 18 when you're saying it should be 17, so can appreciate that as well, but it's all good. They'll fix it up later, I'm sure. I know it comes up when we get to the Mega. Now I know why what I see happening is happening. But back to Nades' lineup for a second. Couple things. One, obviously the Collins play, you talked about it. That was a way to get different there. And I love the secondary stack with it, because really what you did is you attacked games. We love this. You talked about it in the stack rankings. I'll talk more on this in a second, but you had Sam Howell, Logan Thomas, and you ended up going with Samuel. Again, you don't always just go word for word off what it is. You use this to help build out and create your own process. So I like that angle. Then you went with a secondary stack of another area we kind of wanted to attack, Javonte, and that we like that Denver-Houston game. But if you're not playing Russ, not playing Stroud, how can you get in the mix? Well, give me the Denver running back that leverages Russ. Again, didn't get there, but it's fine. And give me the opposite side where they would have to then be coming back from that. You got Zach Moss, but how many people were playing Zach Moss with the D? Clearly, not very many. I always talk about a way to chop your ownership down some is by going to that. And then lastly, if you're not playing CMC, which many were getting to Hill and CMC, well, you had Hill as the run back. That made sense. But instead of CMC, Debo. I love this build. I'm not sure if you fully used the stack rankings, but I think in general, the stack rankings came in to be pretty clutch yesterday. I like this quite a bit. And here you go. You did this stack with your guy with Howe. You end up getting Hill in there as the run back. That's fine. You end up going with, you're not playing the number one stack, the passing side of it. So why not play the running back? You're not playing Brevin because you're using Logan Thomas, who happens to just be right below him. So why not get a receiver in there? Instead of Tank Dell, you had Collins money. You go down, you're not playing CMC and this spot here, but you see Debo right below there. So you get him in it. So, I mean, all this stuff is pretty good. And then Indy's going up against Tennessee, who's halfway down the page where you play the defense there. Who else did you have? Anybody else I'm missing, Nades? I think pretty good overall. Again, if you talk about just using...
I built it straight off of this because obviously Russ, I wasn't all the jokes about Russ, let Russ cook and stuff like that. Tambo says you don't let a chef in the kitchen that doesn't know how to cook. So I don't know why people are still using that joke, but that was our top ranked stack for a good reason, right? I mean, Russ was super cheap. Sutton continues to, his price never moves. But since I wasn't on that, because I was on the Sam Howell stack, leveraging it with Javonte, who's been getting all the snaps, all the carries, everything like that. With Javonte. So I did build it directly off the stack rankings here and attacking games, right? I had to get 3 games right for this build. And that's it. I cut 7 games off the slate when I built this lineup. And it came within 40 points of shipping $1 million with 4 entries.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. You usually see some stuff in it, but I saw a lot of people make some good lineups yesterday, even saying, look, I'll just get the little secondary of Sutton and Brevin Jordan. And again, it's only like 9 and 20, but it's for the price of what they were for the combo. It was solid and you could find other stuff to go around it. I wanted to point out too, this was one of the other things that I talked about. So you didn't take my advice in this one. That's okay. But I'd said on the show for literally 1/8 of this ownership, every single Zach Moss, Tyreek Hill lineup could be Pittman and Achane. And we had good reason. We talked about it on the show about all the stuff with Achane. He practiced like 2 or 3 times the week before and then was just kept out for precautionary reasons, came back here in a great spot, ended up being healthy, even got the work down the stretch like I was expecting. So I was fine with that 2v2. But just to go back here, this was the other reason too. If you saw it here, Tua was down the board. So I was like, when I'm not going that, I was obviously heavy on this. I said it's not for the faint of heart, but if you like this stuff for 1/8 the ownership, I think it was an angle you could take. This is what made me think of it. Play the running game. Instead, it's a good matchup. They're big favorites. All that makes sense. And then Pittman was way up here. So I was just thinking if Pittman's way above Hill, and then you could play a guy like Achane instead if you're not going to that and get off that double chalk piece. I really do use these for that kind of angle as well. And that's where I'm always looking at this stuff to see what are others doing. Like we always say, we're playing a game against the field. Everyone always too worried in their bag about, this guy's certain and this matchup, and they're not that good on paper and all. It usually just means lower ownership, and we need to find ways to leverage up the field. So I thought that was another key point to bring up. And then last thing we'll go to here, guys, is the Mega Milli. I already brought it up here, so this is just 5 guys that I think obviously everybody knows and are very good at DFS in general, especially NFL amongst other sports, but like Ricky D, Hishbu, Whistles, Yodakow, McLovin. Here's their ownership from yesterday, and you could see the field in the Mega Milli was around 84% on Zach Moss, and a couple all-in spots, a couple very close, and then the rest just played the field. I guess I want to kind of go back and see. Let's go back for 2 seconds here. Just see if I can bring this up quickly for you guys. I want to see if I can get the same guys up real quick for you. Just to take a look, right? Just to compare the difference.
$20.
Yeah, and the $20. I've got most of it coming up now. So just be a second, guys. Bear with me. I like looking at stuff like this. This is, again, part of my process. I talk about it. This show is not for everybody, but it's always been for me because I think that's the key component is being able to go back and see what you do, what others are doing, how you can improve your game, and get better. And so this is the interesting note. So just over here, I'll bring it up. So in the 44-44, note whistles 100% Zach Moss. Again, you can see their Tyreek Hill stuff too, and their Brevin Jordan stuff. Like Hishbu took a bit of a stand there. He was 36 owned. These guys were under on Brevin Jordan. 4 guys under and 1 over in whistles. But yeah, just go here. Let's do this now. Let's go share this tab instead. And this is the $20 Millie Maker, as you'll see up here. Same 5 guys. Whistles went under on Zach Moss in the $20. So just something to think about. Again, the rest of them were still, I said this, somebody like Mock, you're allowed to just play the field. He actually was underweight because he probably thought the field was coming in around 55, like most of us did. He actually got to 65. Similar stuff, a lot of guys under, but like you see 76 and 76. So these guys on Tyreek were over, but 98. Now all in on these spots, like Ricky D, Hishbu, 2 of the best in the world at especially NFL, but I mean, Hishbu just crushes at all sports, just won the MLB live final this past year. So just interesting to see what others are doing, but interesting note here. My takeaway, Nades, was whistles way under on both Tyreek and Zach Moss, but field-ish and all in on Zach Moss in the Mega Millie. So that's like Jason says, we're calling it as we see it. Game 3 at its finest, the large field, willing to take a little bit more risk. And I think that makes sense to me. Like obviously in the large field, like I said, like even the large field, I would have been more comfortable with the Tyreek stuff in large field probably, because in the 44-44, you can make mistakes and you were thinking 30 points. What you know in the $20 is 30 may not get the job done at 9,600, as we saw with the winner when you have the Debos, the Mike Evans, the Collins of the world that all come in and get the job done. So very interesting stuff to look at. If you guys have any more things like that in the future that you want us to look at, I know we're rounding down the season, but let's go back here, Nades. Let's go to Shady Advice. And I had to check here and see, I'm guessing McLovin. Yeah, McLovin has the Indy defense because I know my guy, Jerry's the man. Scarface 521 crushes all sports himself. He came in 3rd. And I was wondering why it adjusted on here. And it's clearly because the Indy defense is being credited for 18 when they only got 17. So drops him to 185. Still, that doesn't make sense, though. 184.96. Sorry, it does. 0.5 better for my guy, Jerry. And then I don't know if this is DK, but if it's the DK ambassador, but Kevin Hart down here in 5th place. So maybe Kevin Hart, who does the DK commercials, got the job done. I'll check this lineup out after. Jay Blake, the King. Good dude. I know he got some live final seats. I believe it was with this lineup. So we'll talk about a few here. But, Nades, here's the winner. Shady Advice, really good player, multiple sports. Brock Purdy, Ayuk, Samuel, one of my favorite moves we always talk about, bury the wide receiver spots. Mayo and I talk about it as well, with all these guys that go with a game with a stack, and then get whatever you want elsewhere, because there's just nobody that really does this. They have to play the best plays, so not many people are going to go all 3 wide receivers from this game. Allows you to get in Zach Moss, Brevin Jordan to boost it up. The chalk defense, that's fine, but then you get Kieran Williams as a one-off play there in a spot like that. So talk to me about this one.
Yeah, no, great build. Obviously, I do like grabbing all the wide receiver spots and then not using another wide receiver in your flex, right? He went to double tight end, just burning, hey, I'm going in on this game. I'm hoping all these receivers get there. And I do like that build quite a bit, because it's the same thing as using all 3 outfield spots in MLB, right, from the same team. Like Atlanta Braves, right, comes up a lot. You burn all 3 outfield spots, right, with one team. Same thing, burn all 3 wide receiver spots. So I do like that build. The Kyron Williams probably just fit his roster construction, because he probably started with Zach Moss, right? He knew he was going in on the San Fran game, and the Devonta Smith run back, and then just kind of filled out the build, right? Used Brevin Jordan and Zach Moss as 2 free squares, with like a lot of people did, obviously, especially in this tournament, right? You've seen how many people, the best players in the world, just locked Zach Moss and went super overweight on Brevin Jordan as well. Just landed him on the Atlanta defense, chalk defense, right? Going against Tim Boyle, and then Kyron Williams. I mean, he had $600 left over here. Let me look at the running back position real quick, because $600, he obviously had some sort of conviction on Kyron there. Because
something happened with that. You're right. Like that is one thing that stood out to me, is not only the money left. I know there was like nowhere else to really go, necessarily, but like it's kind of, he got stuck in a spot, right? Because even if you drop to like, let's say you drop to the Panthers D at 2,500, that money doesn't get you to CMC or something. Like you just can't, you're not getting anywhere with it. So he must have just went based off of that. And I don't think it would be, I don't know, could have been a late swap lineup as well. That's definitely a possibility because he has 5 guys from the afternoon there. So maybe, but yeah, very interesting. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, but the Kyren Williams play still made sense, right? I get it, right? It was against the tough team in Cleveland, right? Tough defense. But I mean, Kyren Williams was coming off 16 carries, 6 targets, and then yesterday, 21 carries, 5 targets. Like this is the guy in LA, right? And they were at home. So I mean, that play made some sense. It was a differentiation piece as well because he knew he had high ownership with the Brevin, the Atlanta, the Purdy, the Zach Moss, everything like that. So overall, great build. I mean, he's $1 million richer with one lineup in this contest. And overall, great build. I mean, and another thing too, contest selection matters, right? 188. I mean, he was 30 points from, or 40 points almost from the optimal $20 with this lineup.
Yeah, and so a few things came out here too, like the Trey McBride ownership. We talked about this on the show yesterday. That was one I said I don't believe it. I just didn't see people get into it with the Brevin stuff and all the other guys that you could fit into game stacks. Thanks to Kevlar. I appreciate you, man. New ones, I'm not bringing up your comment, but Kevin Hart can be funny at times, definitely. And I like Jason's idea here. I do want to talk about that in a second because I think it's interesting. But Kevlar, just to answer that question too, usually not very much. Levitan over at ETR, he does a study like each year bringing stuff up, and I've seen it in the past. Typically, and especially in the $20 milli, it's usually only like maximum $500. Obviously, late swap, and this is why I want to talk about this quickly because that's the first thing that came to mind for me too. And our guy Bader Bear's all over it, but I think that's another key point. So you see in the morning, Zach Moss bus, Brevin Jordan bus was the Arizona game was in the morning. So that's interesting because I saw later Jay Blake the King actually had his Tyreek Hill in the flex with Debo up here, but we'll get to that in a second. But just in general, one thing I want to take away from this is I think this is what happens, right? When people late swap like this, they think this whole stack is too chalky. And we don't even know what he did, but I'm going to use this as a good takeaway to talk about because people think, oh, I got to move off it completely now. And they go start looking at like Stafford and Kupp and Nakua and like stuff that we just never even seen happen for the most part get there. So you could have like a Stafford, you can go Kupp, Nakua, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and something else here and think that's good, but it's way off. It doesn't project anywhere near. It's a horrible stack that you're just trying to make something work to make it work versus you could just leave $600 on the table and play Kieran Williams in a horrible matchup at low ownership. Not necessarily a horrible matchup. He's fine. I'm just saying in the sense of what everybody perceives as a horrible matchup. Therefore, you know it's going to have low ownership. It's not what he actually had as much as what he knows, Shady Advice knows the field is thinking. And then you can still get away with this stack and then do this all. And you left money, so you're still unique. You still have the game stack that you wanted to be a part of. I really like that if that's what he did. And even if he didn't, it's still a great lineup. I just think that's key component. This is always true, Joe. I mean, this is a $5,000 tournament almost, man. Like, again, if you're not playing in these daily, we're just reviewing it to see some ideas and get concepts from some of the best players in the world. And I think that's kind of still something that you can take away, especially if you strive to get there. But you can win tickets. You're seeing us in the Discord all the time winning these tickets. We're taking them in to these tournaments. I have no lineups in this tournament. You know why? I didn't win any tickets to it this time. This is outside of my bankroll. You saw on FanDuel, I had 2,300 in. That stems
I found his late swap.
What do you see?
It was AJ Brown and Rashad White to Kyren Williams, Devontae Smith, leave the money on the table.
Perfect.
15-1 was AJ Brown, Rashad White. 14-5 was Kyren Williams, Devontae Smith at way lower, 8% ownership, 8% ownership. Rashad White came in the $20 milli maker at 30%. So in this contest, I mean, he had to be even higher than that. And then AJ Brown had to be higher than Devontae Smith as well.
Yeah, and even then, that's funny because, like, again, this is just in such a smaller field tournament. Probably not something you really need to worry about too much. Like, you could still get there, but I guess to like Bader's point, and what I would say too is you don't want to have all that chalk, a maxed out lineup, everything. But so why not try and just sneak something in there that can get you a little bit different and still hit? And in this case, it hit pretty nicely. So it's nothing wrong with that. I can't imagine like what was, so he's got what, 40, just under 45 points here, right?
Yep.
Let's go. What am I trying to do
AJ Brown. So White got 19.6. Here, I'll do it right now. Calculator. Because this is hits a point on late swap.
It almost scored the same. Very close either way.
Yeah, because AJ Brown got 22.4.
Yeah. So either way, I really like that takeaway.
42.
I mean, I hope you guys can get behind that and see like that's sort of what people are looking at and doing. Obviously, McLovin, great player. He had Purdy, Debo, looks like no run back, Najee, Zach Moss. I mean, pretty straight up lineup. I think like you get, nobody besides the Indy D. But again, they used the Nades move there of putting the Indy D with Zach Moss. Certainly a way to cut it down quite heavily was just to do that. I like that. But my guy Scarface Jerry, got to look at his lineup. I would always review this and see what he did here. Let's see this here. Brock Purdy, Debo, Christian McCaffrey, no run back. Lets them get Rachaad White, Zach Moss, Tyreek Hill. Oh, man, my guy Jerry should have watched the show. What was the difference, Nades? Calculate it for me. I didn't even do it, but I got to see this now. Zach Moss and Tyreek Hill points are what? 43 exact?
7 plus 35.3. Yeah, 43 exact.
Now do Achane and Pittman.
Achane had 25.3 plus Pittman had 30.5. So 55.8. So what? Minus 43.
55.8?
55.8 is the swap.
My guy Jerry, I'm going to hit him up and tell him he should have swapped to that. He wins the million.
He blows them away, yeah.
Blows them away. That was the swap of the day, my friends. And look at this. In this tournament, these lineups are awesome. Like, again, all these guys, amazing players, putting together lineups like this, they're fine. Like, you get away with this, you still win huge money. He actually, as I told you guys off the top, McLovin lost this point. They actually only had 17. My guy Jerry came third for 100K. But I told you guys this was the spot. If you just swap that out and go Achane with Pittman, you still had two really good plays. Achane is probably the only risk in this entire lineup. Some would say Mingo, but I like this Mingo, Rachaad White. That's all you kind of have to do, though, to get different in these tournaments, a different D, all that. Shout out to my guy, Jerry. I know he had a big day overall. I think it was like 125K plus across both sites. So shout out to him. And then Jay Blake, I'll talk quickly. It's just weird. I saw Tyreek here and Debo here, but he had the Minshew, Moss, Pittman stack with Derrick Henry. So you just run this mini game stack up top. Another way to get different with Zach Moss was to play him with Gardner Minshew. You're not playing CMC, so you play Debo. You want a piece of this back and forth game, so you go with Tyreek Hill and Samuel. You get the free square, and then you play the Pittsburgh D as opposed to some of the other popular defenses there. I think this is a really good lineup on paper. It would coincide some with our stack rankings, Nades, because it had like the Minshew Pittman. You could still get Zach Moss in there. It's got Debo. It's got who was the guy he had from Curtis? No, that's you. He had Curtis Samuel. So it's got a Washington piece in there from this game. It's got Henry because Levis is down the board. So you play a guy like Henry mixed in. And then it's got what is the other pieces? Brevin Jordan, who we talked about, is right here. And then it's got the Pittsburgh defense going up against Arizona, who was down the board. So again, he's not using this. I'm just showing it that you can see these angles, and that's what we're looking for when we're trying to build these out. Obviously, trying to dig deeper. I don't have much else, Nades. I know we got the other show coming up next week. I did want to let people know we went through the content we showed you. Like, these are just a couple sections of the site, the rankings, the slate plan. This is just within NFL that is helping people win huge money or putting other people in the track where you could be in the same spot as them winning big money. So we brought this back for today. We're going to be bringing this up. All the sports we're crushing over the weekend. But if you guys want to get in and try it out, even if you're watching this on playback, it's a first month only deal. But with the spirit of giving back and Christmas and Tambo clause, as some are saying, try 20 gets you $20 off your first month. You can use it on the 6 month. You can use it on the annual, whatever you want. But if you want to get in for $49, you can get a full month of action, which will take you right into the first week of January. So check it out. Give it a shot. Go to the site. Use promo code TRY20. Nades, final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
No, hopefully everyone had a good weekend. We got NHL. I already recorded that show. That's up. I'll have all content up for that. We got a 2-game with this little in-season tournament stuff going on for NBA. Hoop will have a quick hit. We'll have all our content up for that as well. And you got the game tonight, right? You got the no Joe Burrow Cincinnati Bengals here tonight with the Jags, I believe, right? So you guys are breaking that down here this afternoon. We'll have you covered for all of that. And if you haven't had a great week yet, you might not be SHIPIT Nation members yet, but use that promo code TRY20 and you still got time to make money tonight. I believe it's $500K up top tonight or $1 million.
It's a big one up top today. Yeah, $500K up top. Huge stuff. Always doing giveaways like Newen says. I can't bring up the heart comment from earlier, but I'll bring this one up. We're giving away another monthly membership from our guy B-Wald, who won the King of the Desert seat. He's giving that away this afternoon. We'll be giving it away on the show there. And then we had another member, Crush, who's going to do 3 or 5 memberships. So if you guys check out, again, all our shows free, go to the, subscribe to this channel. When we get to 5,000, giving away an annual membership. And Nades, we might be aligned tonight. It's a 10-point Jags favorite spot where everyone's going to load up on the Jags. And we have a cheap backup quarterback.
Backup quarterback, baby.
With good dudes, with really good dudes. We got there with Chris Moore and with Damian Pierce. Now we can get there with Chase and Mixon. Like there's opportunity here, man. So there's going to be good stuff. You guys can try out the weekly. Just remember the weekly does not come with the Discord. And right now, this is why I'm telling you to get in. It's $1.50 a day, $25 more gets you this for $49. You just join now, use TRY20 and get in with less NBA on the go this week because of the in-season tournament. It's a good time to take in the NFL course, the NBA course. But again, if it's not for you, you don't have the money, it's Christmas time. We get it. You got other things to pay for. You can go to the main page right now. And we're going to be talking about, we just talked about Showdown this afternoon. You can go get our free NFL Showdown mini course. This is a 45-minute segment we broke out from the main NFL education course. All you have to do is put your email in and sign up. No credit card information required. You guys can get in on the action there and check that out. The chat says, go against the YouTube chat tonight. Yeah, we're doing that parlay. We're going for the 3rd in a row for sure. Do we place the Mixon dust? Maybe it means do we play? Like he can get there. He's not even, I don't know. Everyone calls him dust. His usage is not dust. His results are, but short season, short samples. I'm definitely going to be in on Mixon tonight. And then appreciate everybody watching. So thank you guys. Thanks for all that reached out, for all the support. You guys know I love what I do. Very passionate about it. Right back in it today. What did we say? Nobody cares. Work harder. That's not just when you lose. No one wants to hear you bitch and complain. But when you win, it's only good for the day after. Everyone's excited for you. You're happy for yourself. You got to get right back in. How do you get back up to the top again? You get back to work. You analyze. You review. You get back in. Grind it out for the next slate. Appreciate all those here for watching. Smash the like on the way out. Subscribe to the SHIPIT Nation channel here. For Nades, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!